Hey, this is John Lee Dumas, the founder and host of Entrepreneurs on Fire. And if you're wanting to learn how to embrace change and navigate through disruption as a leader, then listen to the Leadership is Changing podcast with my good friend, Denis Gianoutsos. He's prepared to ignite.
Welcome to Leadership is Changing. Each week, we and our guests provide information and insights through exploring leading change. This is taking your leadership to another level by finding the balance between executive excellence and personal well-being through stories that inspire real change. It's time to adapt in our fast-moving world when leadership is changing with your host, Denis Gianoutsos.
Hey, welcome to the show, Leadership is Changing. What we as leaders know to be true is that change is constant. Leaders everywhere confront similar obstacles because people are people, but everywhere you go, leaders are overwhelmed, disrupted, and under pressure. They run from email to email, meeting to meeting. Many leaders are not changing quick enough, which means they run the risk of becoming irrelevant and being left behind. The purpose of the show is taking our listeners' leadership to another level by finding their balance between executive excellence and personal well-being through stories that inspire real change. I believe we don't have enough effective leaders in the world today, and if we can get the leaders to step up and lead change, then they can inspire real change. It is now time to adapt in our fast-moving world. Hey listeners, welcome to Ask Denis episode. This is a freestyle episode where I'm asked questions by various people, by our listeners, and I share my thoughts, my insights and experiences from working with leaders across the globe. So team, hey, thanks for joining me. I'm going to share today something in relation to leadership culture, and it's something that's been asked by me by several people. And when I talk about leadership culture, there's quite a few things that are happening in the world today that I'm seeing from various leaders in different countries. And I'm seeing them in both business and in other areas as well. And I just wanted to really talk today about leadership culture. When we talk about leadership culture and bringing it to life, that's what I really want to talk about today. Leadership culture, but bringing it to life. What do we mean? Well, what is culture? So according to Google, the meaning of culture has two sides, but one of them is the ideas, customs, and social behavior of particular people or society. So it's the ideas, customs, and social behavior of a particular people or society. And when we put it into the context of leadership, an organization, whether it be a voluntary organization, a corporation, a small to medium-sized business, teams, sporting teams as well, all that kind of things, it comes down to what we call leadership culture and having a culture in their organization. A lot of organizations spend a lot of time around their mission, their vision, their strategy, but a lot of people don't even understand what it means. The number of times that I sit down with leaders, whether it be in a workshop, in a conversation, one-on-one coaching, and I ask them this question: what is your organization's strategy? And do you know that most people can't even tell me? In fact, the majority of people can't even tell me. And they can't even tell me in a few words what it is. And then I ask the question, have you not been told? And they go, yeah, we've been told, but we were told about it in a meeting. It was on some PowerPoint slide. In fact, they put it on a nice sheet of paper up in the kitchen of our floor. So where we're going to have tea and coffees, things like that, it's available for us to see. Now, that's all good, but then most people don't even understand it. They don't get it. They don't know or understand what it means for them. So you may have heard of a terminology called WIFM. And WIFM stands for What's in It for Me. Now, this is relatable to not only strategy, vision and mission, but it's also relatable or related to the culture of an organization. And if the culture is not right, then various things will happen. One, you run a huge risk of not going out there and actually being the organization that you want to be. Two, you may have a lot of attrition due to the fact that people won't be happy and they'll vote with their feet and they'll leave your organization. The thing here is, though, that the most people that do get up and leave and vote with their feet are the ones which are the top talent or talented people, the ones you don't really want to or can't afford to lose. Now, why are they the ones that leave? Because they're the ones that will go out and get a job easily. When I say easily, that's a pretty flippant or quite a broad statement. But they're the ones that tend to go out and get other roles in other organizations based on their skills, their experiences, their attitudes, and so forth. So if the culture in the organization is not right, then various things can happen. As I said, there could be attrition, there could be missing of goals. There also could be whereby there is a lot of disharmony in an organization, or a lot of organization whereby there's lack of clarity and people aren't happy, and there's going to be a lot of issue there. So the thing here is to really think about it, because I've heard of organizations that talk about, and there's one in particular that I know of who talked about, the CEO talked about, we've got to go out there, we've got to go and win, we've got to win at all costs, we've just got to go out there and make it happen. And then 2 years later, that organization is in financial trouble. Now, what they did is they went out there and they went out and bought bids, sales bids. They went out there and bought business. So it wasn't just to go out there and win profitable business where they're going to add value to their customer. They went out there to win every single deal they could, to take it out of the market, but also they may have bought pieces of business. Now, what do I mean by that? It's actually costing them money. It's actually in a situation. So that whole culture of going out there and winning at all costs has hurt that organization a lot, and it's going to take a lot for them to recover and bounce back from it. Now, what would happen if leaders could bring culture to life? One thing is the strategy and bringing that to life. One thing is vision and mission. But if we could actually bring the culture to life, that would be amazing. We've always heard the terminology that culture eats strategy alive. And what we mean by that is that if you've got a fantastic strategy, you've got the best vision and mission, but you don't have the right culture, then your organization is not going to last very well. And it's going to have a lot of problems, as I said before. So what do I mean by this? Well, a lot of leaders can bring that culture to life if they're not out there just giving it lip service. In other words, not just out there talking about it. Because there are going to be a lot of organizations whereby you'll notice that the leadership will talk about things, but they actually won't follow up with the actual same amount of action or behaviors. So the thing here is not just giving it lip service, not just you need to be out there walking the talk. It comes down to making sure that you have clarity on the culture. What will the culture be? What will it look like? How will it be? How will it feel out there? How will people in the team notice what kind of culture we have? And it's a bit about having a sort of belonging, but it's also part of the way that we do things in the organization. And the thing here I would say to any leader, that for you to be very successful, whether it be strategy, culture, whatever it is, for you to be a very successful leader, team, and organization, the one thing that you need to do is bring it to life for people. Now, as I said before, it's about the with them. In other words, what's in it for them? And what do I mean by that is if somebody is a programmer, computer programmer in your team, and they're doing things every day, what they do every day, how does that contribute to the bigger picture? How does that contribute to the culture? How does it contribute to the strategy? How they behave and how they do things will contribute towards the culture. Now, if you as an organization have certain things that you've actually set as the culture and the things that you want to focus on, well, then that's a great start. Because I think leaders need to get very clear on the kind of culture they would like. I would encourage them to think about starting with the end in mind. What is the culture that you would like to achieve and get there? It's not going to happen within 2 minutes. It's not going to happen within 5 days. It's going to take time, work, and focus in getting it done. Now, the thing here I would say is part of bringing it to life is show what's in it for them, help them understand that what they do on every single day in their role, how that culture and their behaviors, how it works towards the culture. But also, every time you're talking to the team, you should be talking about the culture. You should be talking about the behaviors and linking it back and making it relevant for those team members. And if you can do that, then it's going to be fantastic. And if you can show it also by you living it every single day as a leader, your team will follow you. Now, what I mean by this is that by making it, linking it, and relevant is giving everything you say relevancy, helping them understand and giving them examples of that. And then so that will actually help them a lot. Make sure that when you are linking it, that it's happening all the time. In your team meetings, in your one-on-one sessions, anything that somebody does, you can always relate things back to the culture and the way we do things. But also, if you see something that's been done, actually calling it out and saying, actually, no, that's not the behaviors that we want, and actually that's not part of the culture that we want. If it's not right, call it out for people, okay? The other thing is I remember that years ago when I worked for an IT company in the South Pacific region, so in other words, actually in Australia, New Zealand region, we had a leadership team, and the leadership team, there was a little bit of bullying happening. And what we noticed is that it started with one, but then it had to grow. One leader started to call it out. And now it wasn't what they said, it wasn't what they did, it's how they did it. And it's how they called it out and what they did to help, A, the team understand it was something not right, and B, acknowledge it, and then C, they could do something about it. And so that person had to call it out 2 or 3 times. But as they started to do that, it started to raise the awareness of other people, and people started within their leadership team started to get on board with the other person, understand what it all meant. And then as an organization, as a team, they decided the kind of culture they wanted, the behaviors they wanted, and then they held each one of themselves accountable to the things that they wanted to do. So if you give that clarity and set the behaviors, talk about it all the time, make it relevant for people, take them on a journey, and hold each other accountable. And I've got to say, the number one accountability has got to be with you, has to start with you, because you're the one that has to do things to move it forward. Because if you're not, but you're talking lip service or you're expecting others to do it, they won't do it if you're not doing it. And so what I saw was that leadership team did change the culture, did change their approach, the way they were talking about things, behavior, and so forth. And we started to see over a year, 2 years, massive success happen for that team, which resulted in the whole organization being a different place, a lot more happier. The other thing you could do, if you're keen on doing this as well as an organization, is actually having some of these culture things actually related back to the KPIs. So in other words, if you've got some key performance indicators or some certain performance targets and things like that, if you can have something in there related to the culture as well, then what will happen is you'll start to see that behavior happening too. I would also remind people on a regular basis what the culture is. And if you have got situations whereby you can celebrate success around the culture side of things or share some examples and stories, that's going to help things as well. And it will be a lot more what we call social proof within the organization that you see these things are happening, things are moving on, and it's going very well. So if you can relate it to the KPIs or any items, but also celebrate success, celebrate it, call it out when it does happen in a good way. And if there is bad behaviors, call it out as well. So team, today's session is about leadership culture. I think there are so many things happening in the world today that leaders need to step up, but they need to call out the culture, the behaviors that are happening, and make sure that we do have the actual right culture and behavior. You may need to go into your organization and dig deep. You may need to think about things. You need to think about what's going on. You may need to have the right people that you can trust around you to help you look at things. But then think very carefully about how you want to approach things, what you want to do, and then go ahead and execute. Make sure you've got a plan in place. Make sure it's a plan. But is it going to be in cement? No. It will be in sand. So you can move that plan and move things around. But the goal is to take the culture within the organization to the level you want it to go to, that the organization wants it to go to, and then fire up and get on with it and move towards it and focus with discipline and the right behaviors. Team, that's what I wanted to talk to you about today. Leaders stepping up and bringing culture to life. It'll be wonderful to see that. Just imagine if you could do that with your organization. Just imagine what you can achieve. Thanks for joining me today on the Ask Denis episode. What we know as leaders to be true is that change is constant. Change is incredibly scary, especially with the unknown and unfamiliar territory. It is time to adapt in our fast-moving world when leadership is changing. Look out for the episodes as they are released. Download them, listen to them, put a review and a rating. Hey, feel free to share them with your friends, your network, your family. The other thing too is that if you've got any questions for me to ask my guests or on the Ask Dennis side of things, feel free to send me an email. And if there's anything I can do for you, feel free to reach out to me by sending me an email, dennis@leadingchangepartners.com. Hey team, very soon I'm about to launch the Facebook group, Leadership is Changing. Look out for that. Look out for those announcements and feel free to join me in that group on the Facebook side of things of Leadership is Changing. Go out, live the culture, live the leadership culture that you want to live. Have an awesome time. Thanks for joining. Talk soon. Bye for now.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Leadership is Changing with your host, Denis Gianoutsos. Each week, we and our guests provide information and insights through exploring leading change, inspiring executives and leaders to adapt and lead a bigger game in a fast-moving world.